From the news team at LinkedIn, I'm Jessi Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. If you're anywhere close to my age, give or take a decade, you have grown up in a culture that glorifies the hustle. Especially for those of us who are, overachievers, who've experienced success early in our careers. It's so tempting to just keep up, to grind, to strive, to push through. But sometimes the most transformative decisions come when we stop, when we breathe, when we really step back. My guest today knows this better than most. Poppy Harlow is an award-winning journalist and former anchor for CNN. She built a career out of asking the right questions and staying curious. She's been in the middle of many of the most important stories of the last 16 years, like protests.
People power! People power!
It started with this 1 year ago, a grassroots movement that made the 99% and the 1% part of our lexicon. Occupy.
In powerful storms.
This is Seabright, New Jersey, known as a small, picturesque coastal town. But Sandy completely wiped out 100% of the businesses here, and 75% of the homes were either destroyed or severely damaged.
And the pandemic.
Well, this morning, the tragic facts. Across the United States, more than 77,000 new coronavirus cases reported just yesterday.
Poppy is a friend. We worked for the same company near the beginning of our careers, and I can tell you that from the very start, it was clear that she was an exceptional talent. Sharp enough to decode complex events, kind enough to relate to anyone, and such a hard worker. She's worked relentlessly every day. Her job has required mornings that start so early, it's more correct to call it the middle of the night. This job has required her to be on every day. And then last spring, it all ended quite suddenly. More after the break. And we're back. Over the 16 years that Poppy was at CNN, she'd risen to become the anchor of CNN's morning show. Now, after a while, ratings were soft. There was some drama with the co-host. And then, in February, the show was canceled. CNN tried to keep Poppy. They offered her another role with the company. But by then, Poppy had hit the spot that so many successful people in our industry hit somewhere in the middle of a career. She knew intuitively that she'd learned the things she was able to learn from CNN. That it was time for her to try new things, to move on. But what? Well, she wasn't really sure about that. Usually we catch up with guests when they've already launched that next act, when they can look back confidently at the messy middle, knowing exactly how the story plays out. There's something much more vulnerable about being in the spot in which Poppy finds herself now. She's actively in that messy middle. One of the tricks to making great career decisions is not to rush this part. When things feel pretty uncomfortable. So grab your coffee, find a comfortable spot for yourself, and join Poppy and I as we explore what it means to reclaim the pause and the power that comes with that. Here's Poppy Harlow.
I never thought I would be a journalist, and then I never thought I would, have this opportunity to be on camera. And then the universe brought them to me, right? And I listened. And I think at this stage of my career, I'm doing that again. My good friend Britt Morin says, listen to the whispers. Mm. So I got very lucky, but that was my dream. I mean, I was hired not even to be on TV. I was hired to be on the web only. Like, here I was coming into CNN, really young, early 20s, a girl from Minnesota with kind of a weird name at the time, at least, Poppy. I remember walking in there and a couple weeks in telling one of the executives, I think I'm going to go back to my legal name, Catherine, because I want to be taken really seriously. And they were like, don't change your name. Like, that's a good TV name. Don't change your name.
I mean, Poppy, it's such a good TV name.
And it is my name. It's what my parents called me from birth. But the point is, I really I really credit CNN and the management there throughout my career for giving me all these chances to rise, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's our work and our team's work. Producers, as you know, are like so crucial. But they took a young girl from Minnesota with no TV experience anywhere and threw her on TV. Like,
Right.
I definitely wasn't good enough to be on, prime time, if you will. And then the market crashed, and I'm at the NASDAQ doing web reports, and Atlanta called, our headquarters, of course,
Right.
home of the great Ted Turner. And when we say Atlanta called, it's where like the show home bases are. And they said, the market's crashing. Can you go live at noon? And I was like, well, just tell them I've never been on live TV before, ever. And so they're like, well, just don't. Can you swear on this podcast?
Oh, yeah, you can swear.
Just don't fuck it up. And I'm like, okay. And so I did the report, and then the producer got in my ear, and he's like, that wasn't that bad. Can you do it again at 1? And that was the beginning of my job in television. I guess I didn't screw it up too much.
I think it maybe worked out. It worked out beautifully. It is not lost on me that the life of a CNN anchor is kind of nonstop. Like, there's not a lot of time for reflection, I would think.
Yeah.
Walk me through like a typical day. What time does it start? What are you doing? When do you sit down? How much coffee do you have before I've even woken up in the morning?
So I'll walk you through what a day was like in my last chapter at CNN, which was anchoring our morning show.
Right.
With just a wonderful team who I get to see one of the team members today, who's now at CBS News, and
Right.
a bunch of them. And first of all, just for everyone to know, it's the behind the scenes team that has the even harder job on any morning show than the anchors, because they are literally there all night.
Yeah.
Like, many of them come in at midnight and work until, 9, 10 a.m.
Yeah.
My job meant I would wake up at 3 in the morning. When we started the show, I was waking up at 2:30, but it was an absolute zombie. Wake up at 3 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at my phone, like, even before I went to the bathroom, which is not healthy, to see what was the breaking news overnight, because there often was, who was booked on the show that had changed from the night before, and what were our interviews, how were they split up, what did I need to know and prepare for. And then I would try to jump in the shower, unless I'd had time to shower the night before, grab my coffee or tea and run out the door by like 3:15, 3:30. And then the next, until about 5:15, is spent preparing, reading, working with our great producers. I had an amazing producer, Grace, who I love very much still. And she would be there at 1 in the morning preparing research packets. Here's who you're interviewing. Here are our question thoughts. What do you think? What do you want to ask, etc. So it's cram, rush, read this. Oh my gosh, someone tweeted this. And
Right.
then have a call with the team, run up to hair and makeup. I love those girls, miss those girls. And run to hair and makeup, try to find something I wanted to wear, and jump
How
on
did
the
that
set.
piece work? I actually really
The
don't
wardrobe?
understand. Yeah. I mean, how much control do you get over
You have
that?
total control. And they have stylists who can help you. And
Is that a piece that you enjoyed? Like
yeah.
Or is that,
yes, but
yeah.
some days I would put like 5 things on and then rip them all off and put them on the floor. And
Okay, that
you
sounds
know,
refreshingly
It was like,
normal,
it was
actually.
normal, but rushed. I was like, I'm so late for makeup. I'm so late. I was
Yep.
always running. And then run on the set like 2 minutes beforehand, which, that's not very nice to your control room who wants to check your microphone, your shot.
Right.
I should have gotten there like 10 minutes ahead of time.
Right. Well, Poppy,
And then the show starts.
one thing that you have a reputation for in the industry is being incredibly kind, like incredibly empathetic to the people you work with. And in such a high pressure sort of performance oriented moment, I've always wondered, how do you do that? How do you keep that front of mind? How do you...
I learned. I think I was hard on producers. I know I was earlier in my career.
Yeah.
Like, I remember asking a producer to stay for like a 6 p.m. meeting way before I had kids. And then she couldn't because she wanted to go home to her children, needed to go home. And I remember not being understanding, and that was terrible. I mean, so I learned, first of all,
Right.
and grew up there, right? That's why they allowed me to stumble and make mistakes and learn to be a leader. But someone said to me on the plane the other day, I was sitting next to a guy who's a leadership coach, and I don't like flying, even though I fly all the time. So he could see I was nervous. And he started talking to me to calm me down. And, we were talking about leadership because I'm fascinated by CEOs and leadership and good leadership. And he said to me this saying, which I think has been said many times by people before, but they don't care what you say until they know you care. Mm. And I think that's right. So, for our production team and all the people that put that show on and put every show on, it's showing them that you care. So, do you take the couple of minutes to talk to them about where they got their new apartment, or they just got engaged, or they got a new dog, or what have you? That's everything. In any professional relationship is spending time getting to know the person. And I think great leaders all the way to the top. And I mean, CEOs of the biggest companies in the world, that's what they do.
Right. Well, so let's talk about that a second, because another really amazing thing about the career you've had so far is that you have had the opportunity to interview so many people. So many people in incredible positions of power or in moments of extreme vulnerability in their lives. And I'd love for you, not to put you on the spot, but give us one of your most memorable interviews and what made it memorable for you.
I think that, last night I was going through, I have this file of notes, of handwritten thank you notes and photos that were, sent to me by these leaders that I've gotten to interview. And I couldn't believe it. From Warren Buffett to Melody Hobson to Melinda Gates to Prime Minister Trudeau and on. And I just thought part of me thought, if we're being really honest, I can't believe I walked away from that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I walked away from the chance to keep doing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, what a gift to have had.
Right.
And then I also thought about the people that don't have names that you know. And at the end of the day, it is those interviews that have touched me the most. Yes, there have been these extraordinary opportunities with Warren Buffett or getting to talk to Jamie Dimon, et cetera. But what has impacted me equally as much is holding the hands of people in their hardest moments. Yeah. So in France, I went over pregnant and the 2015 terror attacks. And I remember sitting with a mother whose son had been murdered in the terror attacks. And it was so recent. It was just a couple days after that the flowers, he was a florist, and the roses he had sent her were still alive behind her and her son wasn't. Mm-hmm. And holding her hand, literally and figuratively, as I talked to her, is equally as important to me, if not more, probably more than these, sort of famous people in Flint, Michigan during the water crisis, speaking to mothers there, right after the Boston bombing, being there. I, for years after that, kept in touch with, and have still kept in touch with some of the amazing survivors and people have had limbs amputated and gone on to change the world for the better as a result. When people invite you into their world in their best moments and in their worst moments, when they don't even know you, that's what I remember the most from these, almost 20 years.
What makes a good interview? Is it the preparation? Is it the way that you personally show up?
Empathy. I think empathy makes for a great interview. Preparation is part of it, but there's a line between being over-prepared early in my career, or even recently, I'm sure. I would be so prepared that I would say all the things until I didn't let the person say the things themselves. I got good guidance on that from a couple of bosses. They're like, Poppy, you don't need to say so much. It was a defense mechanism of mine, right? Because I want you to know that I prepared and that, I got this. But I think empathy is the most important, because if you're empathetic, you listen.
Yeah.
And if you're empathetic, you put yourself in the other person's shoes. And even in a contentious interview, which I've had plenty of, you can go into it in a way that is understanding that it is going to be difficult for the person on the other side, but not attacking them, right? And I think earlier in my career, I just would go at things in such a hard-charging way that isn't as effective for the viewer either. So listening more than you speak and empathy for the person on the other side.
Yeah. You know, I have had the experience in difficult interviews where I've learned that if you are honest, people usually respect you afterward, even if, and especially when the conversation is difficult. And
Yeah.
when I was young, I was afraid. I was hard charging as a defense mechanism, right? Like, let me tell you all the things I know.
Me too.
But yeah, learning to listen as you go, rather than learning to say what you know, is probably a journalistic rite of passage for those people who mature in the profession.
That's such a good way to put it.
And so then it does bring us back to the current moment. And here you have had the privilege of being in all of these different rooms with these powerful people. And they're here to speak with Poppy. And they are here to speak with Poppy specifically because of Poppy's connection with CNN. And it is your choice now to go in search of something else. We're going to take a quick break here. I'll be right back with more from Poppy Harlow. And we're back with Poppy Harlow.
What's wild is I left without knowing what I was going to do next. Our morning show got canceled. This happens in TV all the time.
I've watched Morning Show on Apple. I know all about it.
I love that show. Ours is not that dramatic, but
I kind of guessed.
It's an amazing, I love that show. And the morning show got canceled. This happens in TV. And CNN was wonderful to me all through it and offered me a wonderful opportunity to stay. And I just felt, I heard that whisper.
Yeah.
I heard the universe telling me, like, this chapter is done. You know, it's time to move on. Now, I didn't mean moving on would mean where we're moving, which we can talk about that in a little bit.
Right.
But it just was time for me, someone like me, to not know where they're going next is insane. Like, I can't believe I didn't have a work email address. My poor husband, he finally told me, he's like, Poppy, I'm not your IT consultant. Like, he set up, I was like, I need Outlook. I need those folders. I need to be able to organize everything. And he created a whole website for me and gave me Outlook email and all these things that started to make me feel a little bit more like myself.
You referred a couple of times in this conversation to this idea of the whispers, right? Like, you listen for the whispers and they're telling you it's time. Where do those whispers originate? Are they coming from outside or inside?
No.
How do you listen?
No, I think inside, although my husband was like crucial in this because I think it's so important to have a partner in your life that will hold up the mirror and show you things you're not seeing in yourself. So I think he knew it was time for me to go before I knew it was time for me to go. And I promise you, if the show didn't get canceled, I'd probably be there forever. So sometimes these things just happen and you have to listen to why they're happening and listen to the whispers. But mainly from inside of me, I think. I tend to be a pretty risk-averse person until this year, I suppose. I suppose this is the year where I quit my job, gave a scary commencement address, moving out of the country. What other scary thing can I do now? I will not jump out of a plane ever. But other than that, I suppose most of those whispers have come from inside. But I think about that a lot. I think, well, will these people who spoke to me while I was at CNN, will they have any interest in speaking to me again? Like, yeah. I believe I have another chapter in journalism in me. That there's, I'd like to spend, after sort of this year, my next 20 years in journalism. I just don't know where it will be and what it will look like. And I think about that a lot. Will people talk to me because it's me, or was it just because it was me at CNN? I don't know.
It's a scary question. Mm-hmm. It can sometimes be hard to decouple our professional selves from our fuller selves.
Yeah.
And that might not even be the counsel to decouple those things necessarily.
Yeah.
But there's also a moment in our lives where we do have to examine our own values and the values of the institutions to which we are connected and figure out how to differentiate them.
That's true. Luckily, so far, and this could still happen, my struggle has not been as much who am I without CNN, because at least the way that I look at it is I carry CNN with me. Like
Yeah.
all that it gave me and all that I gave it continue to exist, right?
Right.
That work doesn't go away. And all the lessons I got on how to be a leader. I grew up there, learned how to lead there, was able to fall, stumble, step back up again, make mistakes. You know, that all sticks with me. So I don't struggle as much with, you know, am I Poppy Harlow CNN or just Poppy Harlow? I just finally changed my little like Instagram and Twitter tags to @Poppy Harlow.
Oh,
no
right.
longer @Poppy Harlow CNN. Yeah. But I don't struggle with that as much. But what I do struggle with is, will whatever I do professionally next matter as much? Because whether you're a fan of CNN or not, journalism matters. And it matters to this country so much, especially right now. Yeah. And I stand by what I think is extraordinary journalism by my colleagues at CNN. And so I think what I did mattered. And now I wonder, like, is what I do next going to matter?
I love that that's the question that you're sitting in. But it also speaks to your values and how you shape your decisions around what you do next. Poppy, we've spoken twice in the last few months at length. Once was very shortly after you left that role, when you were really still getting your feet on the sidewalk.
Yes.
And now a couple months have gone by. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I think a lot of things were flying at you. Hey, Poppy, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this.
Yes.
Everybody has a good idea for how you can spend your time.
Yes.
Now you've had a little bit more distance, and you've made a decision about something you're going to do, at least for a while.
Yeah.
So tell us about it.
So we're moving to Paris. It is that dream no longer deferred, right? It is that dream that my husband and I have had, but I give him a lot of credit because this is really my dream, to live in a place and bring our young children where I never thought I could live. First of all, I thought I'd be at CNN my entire career. Never had plans to leave. And I thought that I would therefore have to be in New York my entire career. If you're an anchor for the U.S. network, it's largely here in New York, some in Atlanta. And so every year when we would go to Paris, we go on the way to Bosnia. My husband is Serbian, born in Bosnia. So we negotiate. I say, okay, I want to go to the family farm in Bosnia, but I also want to stop in Paris. The plane has to land somewhere first.
Right.
And so every summer when we'd be there, I would tell him, I want to live here one day, but I'll never be able to, but maybe when we retire. Mm. But then when I left, shortly after my last day at CNN, I gave the commencement address at Columbia College at my university. And boy, did I rewrite that thing like 10 times, because when I said yes to it in January, I was the anchor of the morning show at CNN. And then by, March, the show was canceled. And then May is when I gave the commencement address. So it changed many times, but the final message of it was time and love, that's what matters, is time and love. And so I thought a lot about my dad, and I'm 42, and he was 7 years older than me when he died. That's it. 7 years.
Wow.
49.
That's my age.
Is 42.
49.
49.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
It's a moment.
It's a moment. And the last trip I took with my dad was to Paris. He went in the hospital a couple days after we got back and never came out. And so, I don't know, for all these reasons, Paris. And so I asked my husband as I was writing that, I said, maybe we shouldn't wait till we retire. I have a break right now. You work for a global company. The kids are young. And he said, let's go.
Wow.
So we're going. So next week.
Wait a minute, next week?
We move next week.
Oh
next
my goodness,
Friday.
Poppy. Time's a ticking.
Time's a ticking.
You make that sound like it was so easy, but of course picking up a family, a young family in that moment is easy and hard at the same time.
But I have the bandwidth to do it. I have the bandwidth to...
You're like, what? I don't have a full-time job? I can make moving my family to a foreign country.
That has been my full-time job.
I laugh a little bit, but I guess I would wonder then, what do you hope from the year ahead?
To find my voice. I think I probably thought I had it. And the outside world would probably think I had it because I literally was a voice on cable news. But that's not my voice. That is, my questions and what I ask are truly who I am and from my core. But as a journalist, I think your job is to elevate the voices of others, especially those that don't get heard enough, which is part of the work I'm most proud of through my time at CNN, being able to help elevate those voices. But I think this is a year for me to really spend figuring out exactly what I believe, exactly what mattering means to me, exactly how my voice and my talent can be most beneficial to the world, while also being the mother that I want to be and the wife that I want to be. But, I was just running so fast for so long, waking up in the middle of the night for that show. And, it's okay to sit, and maybe it's refinding one's voice. But I will do some writing while I'm there, and I have some pro bono work I'm really proud of that I've been working on. It's trying to tie together the law school program I got to do with journalism. Mm-hmm. So that's being able to dedicate my time to that, to helping others on that front, has been wonderful. But yeah, I think that this year is about finding, what matters and my voice.
That was Poppy Harlow. We recorded this conversation last summer, and I recently checked in with her. Paris is going great. And as for Poppy, she's still listening for those whispers. That's one big idea that I'm going to take into 2025. We have to work to get still and quiet within ourselves to hear them. But there's nothing more valuable than trusting our own instincts. Also, Poppy reminds us not to underestimate the power of empathy. It's really her gift. Poppy highlights how empathy helps you listen better, understand others' perspectives, build deeper connections. And this leads to more meaningful everything. Interviews, conversations with your managers. Finally, thinking about Poppy makes me realize again the importance of taking the time to find your voice and your purpose. It can be really easy when you've been at one place for a long time to just adopt the values of that place instead of checking in with yourself deeply. After a long and successful career in journalism, Poppy emphasizes the importance of taking this time now to reflect and realign with her core values. We're going to really look at that deeply in our New Year's exercise next week. I hope you'll join us. Because after all, transition, it is one of the only constants in life. And we can all do a lot better at managing it with grace. So, no office hours this week. I'll be celebrating Christmas with my family. Both kids in my home are still very solid Santa believers. My son is planning this elaborate trap, he does it every year, to catch Santa on Christmas Eve. There's some string involved and some thumbtacks, and thankfully it never really works. Whatever you celebrate, may you enjoy some quiet time as the year winds down. May it reinforce your own intuition and help you to start 2025 with renewed purpose and conviction. Hello Monday is a production of LinkedIn News. Rachel Karp produced this episode with help from Lolia Briggs. Sarah Storm is our senior producer. Sound design and engineering by Asaf Gadron. Our theme music was composed just for us by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. Our contributor, Michaela Greer, helps us listen to the whispers. Thank you to LinkedIn's editorial associates, Ali McPherson and Alexandra Kuznetsova. Enrique Montavo is our executive producer. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Courtney Koob is head of original programming. Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. I'm Jessi Hempel. Happy holidays, and we'll be back next Monday with a special New Year's episode. Thanks for listening. Do you know people in Paris?
Some. It seems like everyone has one interesting friend in Paris. It seems like everyone I've come across who I've told has put me in touch with a really interesting, kind person there.